Right, tea time. Ow, 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 ow. That pot's hot. Lemzip's all gone. Now I'm on the tea. Dakhan in TK2 is green. I think you get orange-red from Hindustan. There's definitely something which is green Hindustan. Just not sure what. So, do we think that there's going to be any other clashes today? I think that Great Britain is basically in a state of protection right now, because I know a lot of the HRE players are feeling quite bad about the former France player, who is now Great Britain, getting beaten up so badly in just one session. Basically went from the whole of France to this in one go. And I know that the Emperor in particular was not particularly happy about this state of affairs. Great Britain is actually a lector, France wasn't. So I think that Britain is now under the personal protection of the Austrians. We might see some fighting against the Ottomans. Most likely from the HRE, but as I said before, the HRE is still kind of licking their wounds. Although I'm quite surprised how quickly they survived. Hey.
Poland and Calico are doing their part of the peace deal, where they are exchanging land.
Okay.
Quickly and efficiently. That's what this is about. It's not an actual war.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. This was the other half of the peace deal we mentioned.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because Poland wants to be Commonwealth in reality, as opposed to just this.
A tag. Yeah.
Yeah. He wants steppe land because he currently has none.
And there it is. The peace deal is done.
Yeah. So that is that. And my contribution to Russian recovery is well underway.
So how much are you subsidizing? Oof, quite a lot.
It's more reps, because that's just more like, but
right, 36 as opposed to, yeah, okay. They're getting quite a few subsidies. I think that Russia's recovery is going to be pretty quick.
Oh yeah, very fast. Granted, the HRE's recovery is not also going to be fast, because if you look at how much I'm expending in diplomatic expenses right now.
Let's take a look. 161 ducats. Good grief.
I am bankrolling about a third of the players at the moment.
20 to Austria, 30 to Sweden, 70 to Great Britain.
Yep.
32 to Russia, and then harbour fees to Austria and Sweden.
Yep.
That's a pretty penny.
Yeah, but if you look at my income...
And still making 119, yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be more.
Definitely not OP.
Because... if you notice, I'm like actually patrolling in the North Sea now, because Calico wants to set up a deal where he sends his trade up around and he's going to transfer. So.
Okay, so is that going to cause conflict between you and Hamburg?
No. If only because I told Hamburg it won't.
Okay.
I've been very accommodating to Hamburg. If you notice, I am not touching Lübeck at all, despite having 17% trade power just by existing.
Yeah, that's true.
Because quote, if I touch it, it quote invalidates my existence, according to Hamburg. So I am leaving that alone. In exchange, he doesn't mess with my actual stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we're being very polite to each other, because I understand that Hamburg just kind of, he's just there, and me being right next to him kind of dampers his whole game plan. So I'm doing my best to be accommodating, because otherwise I just feel like a dick.
I mean, you were already there in the first place, and the Netherlands is always going to be a mighty trading nation, so he's got to have seen this coming.
Oh yeah. Meanwhile, it's now time for now soon for my turn against, because there's some Wallonian land that needs to be brought back into the motherland.
And then converted to Flemish, I assume.
Now, Walloon is actually accepted culture, if you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just southern Netherlands, so fair enough.
The Netherlands in general is about to be a bunch more. I said bit and bunch at the same time. More cosmopolitan, because if you notice, I own Nantain now. Andalusia is selling me his land.
And we do have another war. Sorry, I need to go and talk about this. Alright, so we've got Brazil currently fighting against Shan. Brazil is calling in their allies. This is the Shan conquest of Jesselton. So we've got two of the major colonial powers in Asia. This is a conflict which I think has been brewing for a while, because Brazil's been stepping on a lot of toes here in the Indonesian territories, and it kind of looks like Shan is saying no to this. I'm actually a little surprised that this is Shan and not Japan. Japan is the one that was really doing the saber rattling earlier on, saying Indonesia is for the Asians, stay out Europeans. Hasn't actually done anything about that though, like at all. So, wow. Shan just took a massive chunk of Borneo from Brazil. This definitely looks like it is a part of an agreement of some kind. But what does Brazil get out of this? Brazil hasn't lost any alliances. This is in the Malacca trade node, which Hindustan is mining for all it's worth right now, and diverting an awful lot of trade out of. So I would say that if this benefits anybody, it's Hindustan. Because Brazil is probably one of the few players that could have been pulling that money out and sending it to Europe, although it doesn't look like he's doing very much of that. In fact, he's not doing that at all. Brazil is What is Brazil doing? Brazil, what are you doing? Transferring in Amazonia, Moluccas. Oh no, collecting. Transferring, collecting. Oh no. Brazil's doing terrible trade. Just collecting everywhere. You don't want to do that. Because collecting in more than one place tanks your trade abilities elsewhere.
Mordred, Ulm is now guaranteeing France. So how does that work since Ulm is protected? Because that's something the AI did. That's why I came, because I just noticed that.
Talk to Poet. He'd be probably better capable of saying. Although that is an interesting note. I do kind of wish they wouldn't keep on interrupting me like that. But yeah, Ulm is currently guaranteeing France, which is hilarious. Clearly French turf belongs to Ulm, in fact. Why is Hamburg still alive? Because Hamburg's doing some really good stuff with trade. Basically bankrolling other players, I think. Let's take a look at that. Who are they paying? So Ulm is currently paying off Great Britain, Sweden, and Prussia. In fact, if we take a look at Sweden, Sweden's going to be making quite a lot of money out of subsidies. 20 ducats from Hamburg and then 30 from the Netherlands. So two of the trade powers definitely providing a lot of cash injection to the Swedes at the moment, who otherwise would be really quite cash poor. Sweden's actually really raking it in at the moment. This is going to be really good, because Sweden... their territories aren't worth a huge amount. Like, their military is very strong on its own, but it's usually quite small and has limited resources to finance them. Somewhat similar to Prussia, at least earlier on. But now that Sweden is buddying up with the trade powers, that is the financial situation dealt with. And if Sweden can actually be earning a lot of money, then they can be building training grounds and things throughout the country, which will also help them resolve the manpower issues that they suffer. So, good move there by the Swedes. Meanwhile, the United States is at war again. They are currently fighting against Trade Port 1, Havana, Iroquois, Obijwe, Osage, Panduranga, Potawatomi, and Sioux. Who is Trade Port 1? Here come the Havana troops. There's Tradeport 1, which is in the Hamburg League. I'm guessing that Hamburg refused the call. So Hamburg's got to be suffering some pretty impressively negative prestige. Yeah, they are. So the reason that Hamburg keeps on losing their Merchant Republic is because or their trade league is because they keep going into negative prestige, and they keep on going into negative prestige because clearly they're not protecting their trade ports. So I think I found a potential problem with their business strategy there. It's not always terrible if you can't efficiently transfer a single point. Yeah, but he does have, 5 merchants? One of which currently not doing anything. And he controls, or he has a very large portion of Sevilla. So he could be collecting in Sevilla and pushing the trade to there. How is he doing in the Ivory Coast? He doesn't have a huge amount in the Ivory Coast. Actually, less than I expected. So you wouldn't get much of the Asian trade that way. You would have to go to the Cape and then Ivory Coast, then Sevilla. So we would need some kind of holding there. Meanwhile, into Brazil itself. Could you get to Brazil from the east? No. Brazil is actually one of the worst trade nodes in the game, I think. Because, wait, does anything actually feed into it? Yes. Amazonas and Rio feed into Brazil, but they're the only ones.
Huzzah!
Amazonas is a start node. Rio is a second to start. Coiaba here is the start, goes into Rio, goes into Brazil. Although Rio is actually fed by Patagonia and Coiaba as well. So it's not the worst, but it's still pretty bad. So yeah, Portugal should really, or Brazil should really be trying to collect here in Sevilla, but that would mean doing some kind of deal with the African nations who may well not be positive towards doing that. So okay, maybe collecting there does make sense. In which case they probably would have wanted to turn Malacca into... In fact, where's their trading capital? That's another good question. If we go to you... Main trade city is ready in this node, so Brazil's trade capital is in Brazil, which is a mistake. I think that Brazil should probably have made it into Indonesia and then just fed trade into Indonesia from the surrounding environs. Like, you could be feeding into Malacca from the Moluccas, you could be doing it from the Philippines, possibly Canton, possibly Siam, and would probably be making more money that way. Or into South Africa. Get all the trade from Indonesia and maybe a little bit from India, and then build up South Africa. Although South Africa, I think Portugal sold to the Dutch. Yeah, I think Brazil's basically just doing a game where trade doesn't matter very much. 50 ducats, I mean, that's not terrible. But pretty sure they could be making more. Poet saying, I've decided that they can attack France, but they should treat Ulm as per the rules of protecting a nation that attacks them. They have to get a white peace as soon as possible and do the minimum damage to Ulm as possible. Okay, that's fair. Thank you, Poet. I'm pretty sure you usually listen, but I'll say anyway. Cool. Thank you for doing that. Meanwhile, Britain is currently fighting against Pico and Iroquois. So Britain is trying to expand its territories over here as well, because Britain was not able to grab a chunk of the United States. Although if we're looking at the United States right now, they seem to be somewhat occupied. Things don't seem to be going amazingly well. This is the American reconquest of Sainte. So this is a war that the Americans began. 100 discipline versus 105, 5.2 morale versus 5.2. So I would say that the Americans are slightly outclassed, although they do have the higher tactics, which means the higher military power. The Obijue don't have any bonuses, Osage don't have any bonuses, Potomac don't have any bonuses, and the Americanos have 10% better infantry. So it would be a close fight, and they did lose that battle. They do still have a little bit of manpower. They are running out of money. They do have a second army up here, which seems to be dealing with rebels at the moment. Does America have a navy? Could they be blockading anything? Nope. America does not clearly have President John Paul Jones in power. And, I thought they were going to attack into Kanambwa there. Unfortunately, they did not. What did the US player name the capital? Mohammed DC, apparently. Right, because he's Sunni. Yeah. Because the United States technically was Ottoman for a couple of seconds, he managed to get converted to Sunni and then start converting everything. Which might be why he's having so many problems with rebels. Okay, so now fighting a Bijoué, taking a Bijoué out. Could also take out this tiny little stack. You're going to need to go to Yakadin to do that. They've already left. Yeah, all of these guys are really split up, so should definitely be able to take them out one at a time. Especially because if the US wins one battle, then they can go next one, next one, next one, because they'll keep on regenerating morale from the victories. And I just noticed America has a really good general. Gaspar Davila is a 4642. That is very good. And a Glory Seeker, which is going to be improving prestige.
Mordred,
American
I'd like
prestige
to
as
declare
well.
that the French flagship has been sunk.
Foul, sorry, can you
Sorry.
please let me finish talking without just interrupting?
My apologies. I just got a really funny pop-up. This
All right,
is the
go on
worst.
then.
The French flagship instantly sank.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was just like war declared. French flagship sunk.
Good start then. Okay, so, viewer is pausing for some reason, not sure why. But the Americans did just win another battle. Let's take a look at what numbers they're up against here. 16,000 infantry against 17,000, 1,000 cavalry against 5, 10,000 artillery to 3. So numbers actually being very, very close. America's suffering a fair old bit of war exhaustion, though. Whoa, that's a lot of merchants. You have 10 merchants? How the blazes have you done that? Global trade, American traditions, additional merchants, free trade, overseas merchants, full trade focus, and trade contour network. Interesting. And a bunch of them not being used. We'll need to take a look at that in a bit. The Americans should have the better unit pips. True. They are using Western. The other question I had was just how much are they actually converting? Nothing. So America's probably having, yeah, tons and tons of rebel issues and will be having rebel issues for quite a long time. They're also going to be spending a lot of money on conversions. They do have 2 missionaries going at once, but their missionary costs at the moment are... Oh, only 1 ducat. Okay, that's less than I expected. 1 ducat a month. However, they are being blockaded. They do have some pretty high war exhaustion. I think if I were Midge right now, I'd probably invest a little bit in trying to get that down. Although they're also quite far back in terms of technology. So we'll also be wanting to save that. Plus, if they're actually taking territory here, they're going to need to do a lot of coring. So Midge is kind of up against it in America. They still have a strong position. They seem to have decent diplomacy with their neighbors. Probably. But internally, I think switching to Sunni, not a great idea. I think I would have stayed Catholic. Would have caused a lot less internal issues and would allow the United States to expand faster. Shouldn't have too many troubles with rebel conversions. American traditions give no penalties for religion. Right, so they have 100% unity. But do they not get unrest penalties? Oh, no, they don't. Okay, that's fair. So, in fact, America is not suffering nearly as much as it should be because of the religious issues. They are suffering primarily because of war exhaustion and overextension. How much is your overextension? 24%, that's not awful. So it is mostly war exhaustion. And it would cost 74 admin to burn that down. Sorry, Diplo. 74 Diplo. Which might be one of the reasons why he's so low on Diplo. How did the Russian-Iran war go? White peace, as far as I could tell. The only territories which changed hands were down here with the Timurids. Because I think Russia was on Timurid's side against Iran. I don't think that this was a separate conflict. And Calico seemed to be pretty keen to just peace everyone out as soon as he could. It was a pretty brutal war for everyone involved. All parties definitely took some hits there. Hey, Cleanus.